Welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up. In case you join us for the first time, we do a pre-race show every Saturday, and of course, we have everyone here with us. We got Joshua Birch; he's going to be here to discuss Formula One later in the program, and of course, we got Adam Lemeries, Ben Schneider, and Kobe Lameth. We're going to start off with NASCAR and the drama that was the Charlotte Bank of America 400 Roval race, and we encourage everyone participate in the chat room because we definitely want to hear your questions, share them on the air with all of our folks right here on the air. And of course, the big talk has to be Kevin Harvick versus Chase Elliott, and the payback came today. As we said, it would happen before Martinsville. Stage 2, Kevin Harvick got to the back bumper of Chase Elliott, sending him to the concrete wall in turn 7. That was a hard hit following from Cole Custard, entering the speedway portion. This put Elliott outside looking in, and he said he was going to go after Kevin Harvick. Then entering the heartburn turn, Kevin Harvick, he saw Chase Elliott was right behind him, got locked up his front tires, and into the wall hard. So that ended his day. Starting with you, Kobe, did Chase Elliott force Kevin Harvick to make a mistake today?
I think it's safe to say that Chase Elliott rattled Harvick's cage because Kevin Harvick, he knew Chase was coming, and Harvick ended up taking himself out, and he really saved probably a post-race fight on pit road by doing that. And you can tell that the pressure was starting to get to Kevin Harvick, especially when you see that 9 car getting big in your mirror. And Chase Elliott was a man on a mission out there. He was determined to lock himself into the round of 8, but first, if Harvick was in the way, he was going to move him out of the way because of what Harvick did to them. I was really surprised to see that Harvick waited to just a random moment in the middle of the race to get payback from Bristol. I thought he would wait towards the end of the race, but the number one rule in stock car racing, if you are going to take somebody out, make sure you finish the job instead of leaving him out there. And I'm no way advocating for drivers to wreck each other on purpose. And I really don't want to see that at all. Even Rick Hendrick said in the post-race press conference, he said he hoped this feud is over. He doesn't want to see it continue because he doesn't want to race like this, where you have 2 guys just going at each other. Yeah, so I was kind of surprised Harvick waited at that particular moment to get revenge against Elliott for slowing him up at Bristol and ruining that potential race win for the number 14. But overall, drama, playoffs. I'm sure this is exactly what NASCAR wanted to see today because this is one of the big storylines leaving the racetrack.
Yeah, one word is karma, and I'll agree with what Kobe said. I believe Chase Elliott rattled Kevin Harvick's cage going into turn 1. As our colleague Ben Schneider has now dubbed that turn the Wall of Champions. So all I know is, I'll have, and Rick Hendrick did say that in the post-race news conference that hopefully this feud is over with. And I know we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But, Joe, I believe our colleague Joe correctly predicted that something were to happen before Martinsville, and he was right. So this was a crazy race at the Roval in Charlotte, and I believe the fans got their money's worth there this afternoon.
I have to agree with you there, Adam. I had to bring this out for the entertainment factor today. But in all seriousness, I guess I should actually answer the question here instead of going back to those quotes that we make fun of Steve Phelps for. Listen, it's an interesting question you pose here because I think, I saw a lot of people using the intimidating feature meme from the old NASCAR video games because that's what it reminded them of. Chase Elliott got to Kevin Harvick, or almost got to Kevin Harvick, to the point where NBC noticed it. They had their cameras focused and zoomed in on them. And then, for Kevin Harvick, a veteran of, more than 2 decades in this sport, to make a mistake like that, you'd think a rookie was behind the wheel of that number 4 car today. Just very uncharacteristic for somebody of his experience to make a move like that and overdrive the corner. And the easy answer is, well, yeah, he probably saw Chase Elliott coming, knew that he wasn't happy. I don't know if he had access to the scanner, but we saw NBC even played the audio of it that Alan Gustafson told Chase Elliott, listen, if you run into Kevin Harvick, we're probably safe above the cut line. And Elliott says, don't worry, or something to that extent. And, we're starting to play the scenarios out in our head. Do we think Elliott's going to invoke some payback here? And turns out he didn't have to, because Kevin Harvick took care of that by himself. So, it's an unfortunate mistake for Harvick. Like we said, Stewart-Haas has kind of had a down year altogether. Harvick's still obviously been the leader of the pack for them, but it is kind of strange. It's a very rare mistake out of a champion that you wouldn't necessarily expect. But I guess Tums isn't sponsoring the Turn 1 anymore at the Roval. We kind of need a new name for it. I suggested Wall of Champions on Twitter. Thinking back to when Brad Keselowski went there the inaugural year, Chase Elliott crashing into that turn and then coming back to still win the race. But Wall of Champions is taken, so I don't know if we can go that far there.
I encourage everyone in the comments, if you were to rename that corner at the Charlotte ROVAL, what would you rename it? Follow-up question for you, Adam and Ben. I know, as Kobe had mentioned, Mr. Hendrick said he would like to see this feud end. Of course, one of the big things, Chase Elliott, he did not retaliated to Kevin Harvick to ended his day. Do you believe that this feud is over?
Yeah. Rick Hendrick did, like we just mentioned, Rick Hendrick, he doesn't like this feud, between Harvick and Chase Elliott, and I believe even the birthday boy, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Happy birthday to him, by the way. I believe he said that this feud is over with after what happened, at the Roval today. So I'm going to say that the feud is over with, but Martinsville's coming up, and it's Halloween. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it better be over. Because Kevin Harvick's not in the playoffs anymore. It'd be one thing if I guess the dream scenario for NASCAR for the entertainment standpoint would be if both Harvick and Elliott had found a way to move on. Obviously, with Harvick crashing out, that didn't happen. So, I think with Harvick out of it and Elliott still in it, it'd be very foolish for Chase Elliott to send a message on track now, given that was the situation. It was kind of a reverse, and I'm not defending the move at all that Matt Kenseth put on Joey Logano in 2015, but that was the reverse situation where Logano was the one that had the payback taken to him by Kenseth, and Logano was still very much in the championship fight, going for his fourth win in a row at the time, and Kenseth was out of it multiple laps down and came back out on track just to take Logano out. So, I'm never a fan of intentional wrecks, but I certainly wouldn't be a fan of Chase Elliott just jeopardizing his championship chances. We'd love to say NASCAR is consistently inconsistent. I don't know that they would put their foot down and give a suspension out there for a move like that if he'd done it today or if he does it in round of 8. But I see no reason for him to do it in the round of 8 because he's still fighting for a championship. Kevin Harvick isn't. So, Adam, like you said, even Dale Jr. on the broadcast said, I think the feud's over, and it better be over.
I have to agree. I believe the feud is over. I can see Harvick, especially we've seen how if a driver's out of the playoffs, their performance seems to drop down. It might make it a little harder for Chase to get around him, but I don't think he's going to go out of the way to try to wreck Chase Elliott, ruin his championship hopes, because at the end, it was Kevin Harvick that made the mistake today and got into the wall. And, of course, that wall, that was just another highlight reel that's going to live as long as we're racing the oval, because every time we're at the Roval, you got to anticipate a crazy race, and that's what we expected today, and that's what we saw today. However, the race winner was no surprise, the winner of the Sonoma and Watkins Glen race, and the first driver to win 3 road courses in a single season, Kyle Larson, his 7th win of the year, and at one point, he was below the cut line, had alternator problems, and came through the field to get the win, muscled his way past Denny Hamlin to get the win, and earn 60 playoff points. Just amazing. Ben, starting with you, how huge of a statement did Larson deliver to all the playoff drivers today, and what has he done to the competition? And I see it looks like Ben might have just logged off for a quick second, so we'll go to Kobe. Kobe, when it comes to Kyle Larson and the performance he did today, what kind of statement did he deliver?
I think Kyle Larson, that number 5 team, made a massive statement today. Today's recovery drive was a championship winning drive, in my opinion. And it just shows when something goes completely wrong that they can rebound and make sure they're able to fight off anything that's obviously not in the playbook. So I definitely think Kyle Larson delivered a big statement that you can throw anything at us, even things that we didn't plan for it, and we can fight back from it and go out there and win the race just like he did today. So Kyle Larson, that 5 team, I think they're definitely the championship favorite right now.
Yeah, sorry about that, Joe. My program quit on me. I just had to jump right back in here. But I think it's a huge statement win for Kyle Larson, and not just him, but the entire 5 team as well. I was very happy to see Cliff Daniels give the 2 mechanics and pit crew members that ended up fixing Larson's alternator shout out on the NBC broadcast, because this is very much a team sport. I think we forget that a lot of times. All the focus gets placed on the drivers and a little bit the crew chiefs, but everybody plays a role within that team, within all the teams, and that's something that we can't forget, particularly on days like today when this was an issue that had Larson below the cut line at some point, which is unbelievable to think about given the season that he's had. But for that 5 team to come together, never give up, and find a way to come back and ultimately go so far as to win the race today, it speaks volumes, and it shows why Larson's had the kind of season that he's had, and his team's firing on all cylinders at the right time.
This team does seem to be firing at all cylinders right now in the round of 8. That's going to get started, and definitely it's going to be very interesting. We have 3 Joe Gibbs racers, 3 Penske racers, and 2 Rick Hendrick racers. Larson and Hamlin, they're starting the round as the top 2. Prior rounds, Blaney was that second place driver, but now it is Hamlin. Hamlin has been really turning up his performance in the playoffs, getting win after win. And the opening race in the first round, so if he does that in Texas, that could really send a statement that he's in the Final Four and you got to contend with him. Kobe, is it safe to say both Larson and Hamlin will make the Final Four?
Well, that seems like that's the plan right now. Hamlin and Larson have been the top 2 best drivers so far this season, and I know we've talked about this time and time again on this program. If we were just going about a season-long championship battle, it would be Larson and Hamlin. It would be just like what we're seeing in Formula One right now between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. And I think if you had to pick which drivers were most deserving of the championship this year, it certainly has to be Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, especially Kyle Larson. So we can't pencil them in with the Sharpie right now, saying that both of them are going to be in the championship 4, because at the beginning of the round of 12, we were like, oh, Larson's definitely a lock, and then we saw when he had some electrical gremlins take place today. At one point, he was out of the round of 8. So anything can go wrong for Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin as we enter the round of 8. I believe we have Texas coming up, then Kansas, then the Martinsville cutoff race. We could see either of those drivers have issues in 1 or 2, or even all 3 of those races, and then it'll be game over for them in the season. So while I want to say Larson and Hamlin are definitely the top favorites to be in the championship 4, we can't count all the others yet, because anything can happen in the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs.
Yeah, that's about right, Kobe. I'd have to say, to me, Kyle Larson right now is a definite lock for the championship for Phoenix. Denny Hamlin, we'll see what happens going forward. I'd probably have to say yes. And another driver to me that I think is going to be in the championship for will be the defending champion, Chase Elliott. I believe something says that he'll go into Texas and Kansas having really good races, and then Martinsville. I know it's a short track, but somehow to me, I think he wants to go back to Phoenix and defend his championship. So the 3 I think will be a lock for the championship for Phoenix are Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and Chase Elliott.
3 drivers could get in by wins. 1 will get in by points. And as you can see, when it comes to the points, Larson has the clear edge over everybody. Everybody else, stage points are going to be so important. And this is just going to be a phenomenal, I think, lead up to the championship round. And before we go into Formula One, I know, Josh, you've been up watching, seeing all the madness that was the Charlotte ROVAL. What were your thoughts on this race?
It certainly lived up to last year's or a couple of years ago when we had torrential rain on the ROVAL. And I remember watching that race as well, and the commentators having to fill for an hour and a half, and then they were all just going everywhere. It seemed it was the same today, despite it being sunny conditions. 9 cautions in the end, I seem to remember seeing. One of them I don't really agree with happened at I think halfway through stage 2. We had the spin on the start-finish straight coming out of the chicane as well before the line, and they threw the caution. Now, I didn't really see why that was necessary, considering that it leads back into the infield section immediately after. So I think they jumped the gun there a little bit too quickly. They could have run green for a lot longer. I think NASCAR shot themselves in the foot with the amount of cautions they had today. Tight twistiness of the infield section as well. We saw the number 3 getting hit into the wall as well. And the only part I've got to add on all that is that the one thing that Dale Jr. said as well was that coming into Martinsville as well, that is going to be the big one for the remaining races as well, where we're really going to see them all close up together and race together. He thinks it's going to go all the way down to Halloween. It's possible, but it's Fright Night at IndyCar, and I can't wait for Halloween's race in Martinsville.
And next, moving on to the never-ending championship drama that continues over in Formula One, when it looked like Lewis Hamilton would be behind by 1. Instead, he's down by 6 points to Max Verstappen. A late call for a tire saw him drop from third to 5th, but Max Verstappen finished 2nd. Ben, Josh, was it necessary for Hamlin to stop? And was this a reverse of fortunes from the Russian Grand Prix when Lando Norris stayed out too long?
Well, it's definitely a reverse of fortunes because Hamilton won in Russia and was 5th today. So I guess that answers that part of the question. You know, hindsight is always 20/20, and you know, it's very easy for us to sit back on our couches while we're watching the race and point out after the fact, after the race is over, that, well, Mercedes should have done this, Ferrari should have done that, McLaren should have forced Lando into the pits, or whatever the case may be. You know, I think in that moment, you know, it's very difficult to make a decision like that on the fly. And if you're Mercedes, you're seeing other cars come into the pits, you know, maybe it makes sense to call Lewis in and think maybe, you know, you're not going to catch the cars ahead of you with status quo. You might want to try something different. And I think Lewis even sounded like he was in agreement with that. I don't know, but he would have fully agreed with it if he had known that he was going to lose a couple of positions. I think the Sky commentators were even pointing that out. But I think, you know, when you think of what Lewis did in this race last year, you know, that unbelievable drive to clinch his 7th world championship, you know, you looked at what his tires looked like after that race and what a lot of drivers' tires look like today. I think absolutely he would have made it to the end had they decided not to pit. And, you know, Esteban Ocon, I think, doing that himself is further proof of that. Now, Toto Wolff seems to think maybe Lewis would have been passed anyway, and it would have been a wash. And, you know, I think that's certainly a possibility. I can tell you this, though. I don't think Lewis would have ended up any worse had he decided or had Mercedes decided to leave him out there and just finish the race on the same set of tires. I think there's a chance he would have done a little bit better. There's a chance he wouldn't have done better and would have just remained in P5. But I have a hard time seeing how leaving him out there would have led to a worse result than ended up happening. So in hindsight, like I said, it's easy for us to criticize the decision, but, you know, I have to acknowledge it is a difficult decision to make in that moment.
Sound reasoning there, and I'd agree with you 110% on that one. I've put it in my little notes I've compiled post-race as well. Hamilton, bad day, no pit. I said he didn't need to pit in the commentary as well. He forced Perez off the track as well. He was out there completely balling with it as well. We saw practically his tires were destroyed. As soon as Bottas came into the pit lane, we knew Hamilton was either going to go long and risk taking 3rd place, or fall back on the same set of tyres and risk being P6 or 7 because he was being caught up by Gasly and by Norris as well. Leclerc had stopped, was on a much fresher set of tyres as well. The problem we had today was the original intermediate tyres. Let's use Esteban Ocon. So his intermediate tyres did the whole long of the race as well, all 58 laps. Now, what happened was when the race started, because I had a guy trackside as well, he told me as well that it was raining at the start, it was wet, it was damp, there was loads of standing water on the circuit. So those intermediate tyres were able to be kept cool constantly, and they had a slower decline on their degradation rate, so that when they were worn down to slicks, the track had both a dry line and a wet line. And the sort of circuit was like, if I use my piece of paper here as well and bend it in half, they had the dry line at the top, and then they still had the shallow groove intermediates on the other side. So it was able to cope with the water better. The reason we saw degradation on the cars that pitted later for brand new sets of intermediate tyres, that would be Ocon, who didn't pit, but hang on, it would be Leclerc and Hamilton who pitted, and Latifi who came in. They all complained over the radio that the tyres degraded after 5 laps. We saw that with Leclerc. He dropped off and finished the race down in 4th place. He got passed by Perez because those sets of intermediates had a degradation point that was not the same as the original. It was too dry out there for the intermediate tyres. They just burned up quickly. They didn't have the natural slow progression to turn into slicks. They were just turned into slicks like that. It was like half chewing your chewing gum as well, and then spitting it out. You've got one side that's still rock hard, one side that is soft. It's pretty much the same, where if you leave it on for a while, it's all soft, and then you leave it, it hardens up again. It's that sort of thing. And the problem was for Hamilton, he pitted, and then he had those new intermediates, and then he had degradation, then he lost time. In the last few laps, he's been caught constantly by Gasly and by Lando Norris. So mine and Megan's point in the comms box was he shouldn't have pitted. He would have at least finished 4th. In the end, he finished P5. So he's lost points in the title. He's now 6 points back. It could have been 4, and it could have been 1, as you said, if he'd held on for 3rd place. It was a terrible strategy for Mercedes today. Personally, I don't think they're that good at strategy when they're in the midfield. They're more used to running at the front and planning free pit stops effectively because they don't have to worry about the cars behind. This is the first year they've had proper title contention all the way throughout, and we are seeing the cracks in their strategy. Hamilton was angry at Bono. When have you ever seen that happen before? Was that the point? He literally said when he's under attack from Gasly, "Just leave me alone, Bono." It was a bizarre day. No, he didn't need to pit. It cost him loads of points.
And I guess we can say all that when, and sometimes it can have consequences when you're not used to being in certain situations. And as we go on to the end of the season, I'm sure Lewis Hamilton will be in Mercedes be kicking himself if this ends up costing him the championship when it's all said and done. If these are the points that he lost today really made the difference. And one of the defining moments from the Turkish Grand Prix was Sergio Perez keeping Hamilton at bay, which proved to be very valuable. And Perez really living up to his role at Red Bull, coming home 3rd. Also, Bottas delivered big for Mercedes by having a great start and controlling the entire race. Mercedes still leading the constructors over Red Bull, and McLaren still 3rd. Both Ferraris scored today. Carlos Sainz was voted driver of the day, and Leclerc found himself in contention for the win with the upgrades to Ferrari and only 7.5 points behind McLaren. Is Ferrari on the offensive and McLaren playing defense?
Oh, it's a toughie one now, isn't it? We've been talking all season about this battle between McLaren and Ferrari. If you look at my fan underneath the commentary box, doesn't keep blowing my notes. What is it? McLaren 240, Ferrari 232.5 points in the standings. That's unbelievable. So 7.5 separating the two of them. Definitely, I think Ferrari have switched up their game going into the last 6 races. They are really going to be on the attack. McLaren, they've got Lando Norris fighting up there, but Danny Ricciardo, yes, he started down in P19, but he only finished, according to my notes as well, in P13 as well. And he had a fight back starting from P20. Could have been better, I've put as well. So yeah, McLaren has the disadvantage of not having a good performing Ricciardo. Ferrari have got 2 strong drivers going constantly. Amber JJ has asked, could they have given Hamilton used inters? Great question. And yes, they could. Do you know why? Because the FIA gave the teams an extra set of intermediates, a 5th set of the 4 they already get, in for free practice 3 and qualifying. Now, qualifying started on the intermediates and eventually drifted onto the dry tyres. Now, the Q1 tyres had to be given back to the stewards, so that lost a set of intermediates. But the tyres they used in free practice 3, which were still good because they only did a couple laps on those sets of inters that they gave to the stewards. So, yes, if I'm still visible, looks like I'm frozen. Oh, there we go. So, yes, he could have pitted for another set of used intermediates. Don't know why they chose brand new. I would have put him on the set that the FIA gave you for free practice 3. In my notes as well, and I rang around all the teams asking how many sets of brand new inters, how many sets of old. They all said, we've both got 3 new sets and 2 old sets. So, yeah, they could have easily put him on an old set of tyres.
Yeah, I believe right now Ferrari is on the offensive. We saw it today. I believe it'll be a real battle between Ferrari and McLaren for third place in the Constructors' Championship. Right now, Ferrari does have the upper edge, going to Coda in a couple weeks' time. But McLaren, I was surprised to see Daniel Ricciardo, not have a really good day today. After what we saw, what happened in Monza and then also in Russia. So really surprised at that. But to me, it was really cool to see to get both Ferraris in the points, and McLaren could be at the end 4th in the Constructors' Championship. But I believe the battle for 3rd will go down to the season finale in Abu Dhabi.
And for the 2nd year in a row, the Turkish Grand Prix, we just talked about it. We saw the intermediate tire be the correct tire to stay on, and one driver made it to him without any pit stops. Esteban Ocon. Sebastian Vettel tried the medium tires at one point, but it didn't last long. 1 lap struggling on the track. AlphaTauri had an eventful day with 2 drivers running the points, but only Pierre Gasly earning the points at the end of the race. This late in the season, no wins, inconsistent performances. How would you rate AlphaTauri's season as a whole?
If I had to give him a letter grade, I'd probably give him a D+. We really haven't seen any consistency with AlphaTauri this year. Even though they have 2 really good drivers, Pierre Gasly today was the only one that scored points for them. They're way down in the Constructors' Championship, and they're going to have to find something, toward the end of the year and possibly next year in order to contend. Otherwise, they'll be in the back of the field.
I don't know, Adam. I think that's a little harsh, to be honest with you. I think Yuki Tsunoda, maybe I'd put him in the D range. And I know that sounds a little harsh coming out of my own mouth, but, even he is said, I think he was a little surprised that AlphaTauri gave him a 2nd year and a contract for 2022 so early, because he has made a lot of mistakes. He's a fast driver. He had a lot of success in Formula 2 last year. But I think when you consider, obviously, he's a rookie in F1 this year, and his teammate Pierre Gasly is a little bit more experienced. But at some point, you have to cut down on the mistakes, and you have to show that you can at least run a similar pace to that of your teammates. I don't think it's fair necessarily to knock the team for not winning a race. Given how much of a shock Pierre Gasly's win was last year. But I think Gasly has had a solid year, all things considered, and I think it's proven in many respects that I see Amber's giving them a C+. I think that's probably the range that I would put them in as well. It's proven as we look at Sergio Perez. Obviously, this isn't a great week to bring this up because he did finally get another podium. But he's struggled behind Max Verstappen in that second car. Alex Albon obviously struggled, and Pierre Gasly struggled mightily in that second Red Bull seat with Max Verstappen as their teammates, and yet Gasly goes back to AlphaTauri. He goes and wins a race. He's had some strong runs here and there, several podiums to his name as well. I'm hopeful to see Alex Albon back in the Williams next year. It's going to be exciting to see what he can do. And obviously, we know Sergio's a great driver. He won a race in a Racing Point last year. So, I think when you look at AlphaTauri as a whole, I probably would give Gasly a B and Tsunoda somewhere in the D range, like you were saying, Adam. So I guess that averages out to a C+, like Amber was saying in the chat.
And the next race coming up is the United States Grand Prix at Coda. A race Lewis Hamilton's won 5 times. Max Verstappen, his best finish there is second in 2018, has a total 2 podium finishes, 2018, 2019. Does Max need to leave Coda with the points lead? And how does Hamilton respond to today's race result from Mercedes?
I got to tell you, Kobe, I think it's a must-win for both of them. I think all 6 races are going to be a must-win. This championship is what we, as Formula One fans, have prayed for, hoped for, begged for the last several years. And, we did get a little bit of a title fight with the Mercedes men and Lewis and Nico from 2014 to 16. We got it a little bit when Ferrari flexed their muscles with Sebastian Vettel in 17 and 18. But it has been a long time since we saw a championship battle this exciting that we almost can say with near certainty is going to go down to at least the last race or two between 2 drivers driving 2 different cars. They are so equally matched, I think, as drivers, and their cars are equally matched as well, the Mercedes and the Red Bull. So, Max Verstappen regaining the championship lead today, that's great for him. But, who's to say Lewis doesn't go out and win Coda like he's done several times before and reclaim the lead from there? It's just been so back and forth. And I think if somebody is, I know it's a little bit late in the season to do it, if somebody's going to establish themselves with a true advantage in this championship fight, every race is now a must win. You've just got to go like hell. And, there's really nothing more to say.
I completely agree with you. And it is completely crazy to think we've still got 6 races left on this season. It feels like it's getting to the end of the year now, but there is still 2 brand new tracks that Formula One have never been to before. A reprofiled Abu Dhabi, returning stateside as well, going over back to Brazil and Mexico. It's unbelievable. Now, here's the thing as well, 6 points between them, but Lewis Hamilton is a master of the circuit of the Americas. He's won so many times there as well. He's going to go there knowing he's got a great setup right off the bounce. Max Verstappen doesn't really go well in America. That's all right. 2 weeks later, he can go better at Mexico. He's won twice at. So definitely, I think it's going to go America, Hamilton, Mexico is going to be Verstappen's. By the time then we get to the next race as well on the calendar, when we get to Brazil, that can swing either way. Verstappen was our last winner there, but Hamilton's also won there in the past. So that's a bit of a battleground. I think Brazil is going to be a great race. Going into Qatar, that is another desert circuit where we know Red Bull had the advantage. It's a similar track to Bahrain as well, similar climate conditions as well. So hopefully we're going to see the fact that maybe Verstappen can edge out Hamilton there. Going into Saudi Arabia, that's a street track, and that is Lewis Hamilton territory. Think about Singapore 2018 as well, that demon qualifying lap, and it's a tight, twisty circuit from what I've seen as well. So Hamilton might have the advantage there. Going to Abu Dhabi, Max won there last year, Hamilton's won there before. So we only really know 2 tracks that one of them is better at. Hamilton at Circuit of the Americas and Verstappen at the Autodromo Hernando Rodriguez. So after that, who knows what's going to happen? And that is going to be the key for this title. We'll know going into the last 4, it's going to be absolutely crazy. And all I can say to that is bring it on. Because at the end of the season, I want to put my microphone down. I want to go into the winter break. And I want to think about the fact that we've just seen one of the greatest Formula One seasons of all time. And if it is decided by half a point, that's even better.
Yes, this year's Formula One championship battle is definitely a championship battle for the ages. And years down the road, if we all have a family of our own, we're going to be on YouTube looking at some of these old races, showing our kids these clips of this amazing Formula One championship battle that we are witnessing right now. And it's a shame somebody has to lose this battle, because Hamilton and Verstappen are both deserving, whether or not Red Bull or Mercedes comes out on top in the end, because it's been such a mega battle all season long in the remaining races we have left, just like it's been the entire season. I think it's going to be back and forth between Lewis and Max, and I can't wait to see how it turns out.
And one of the things we're seeing how it turns out is the grid ranking, week 29 of the grid rankings out, and Shane Van Gisbergen is still on top of the points. Next week will tie his prior streak of 9 weeks in the top spot. Of course, Shane has led week 1 and 2. Colin Rossenperra led week 3, and then Shane again week 4 to 12. But then Sebastian Ogier, who's right now in second place, he led weeks 13 through 20. Supercars will resume at the end of the month, and of course, Kyle Larson with that win today, he moves up to 4th place ahead of Fabio Quartararo. That is the only move in the top 10. Then taking a look at the entire grid ranking, as you can see, full grid ranking right there. Next weekend, we have NASCAR Cup Series at Texas Motor Speedway, World Rally Championship, Rally Spain. Ogier and Evans, both of them in the top 10. They could score some points. And if Shane Van Gisbergen has some bad luck during the regular season, he could potentially gain some ground. So definitely it's going to be really exciting to see what happens with the grid ranking. And you can follow the grid ranking on Twitter at grid ranking, and be sure to follow the Grid World Motorsport League at grid_WML.
And now it's time for our grid one shining moment of this fabulous and crazy motorsports weekend. So I'll start with you, Josh. What's your grid one shining moment?
Let's go to Birch's Bible, as I started calling it as well, and it's caught on a little bit. Looking at the grid as well, we had all 20 finishers in this race, but for me, there was only one person who stood out, Esteban Ocon. How can he not? He decided to do the entire race on one set of tyres under the assumption that he did it last year. He said in a post-race interview, I remember last year I pitted after lap 1 when I had damage, and I did about 57 laps on the intermediate, so I thought we can do it again this year. He remembered wrong. He did the first 9 laps on a set of wet tyres, then came in and did 47 laps on the intermediate tyres last year. So he misremembered, and he was 1 lap away from getting a puncture. Honestly, he came into the pit lane. The one half of the tyre on the right-hand side, was where we've seen all the degradation so far this weekend. It had burnt through the rubber, through the camber, through the steel wool section of the track, and it was right down to the elastic casing. One little bit. One more lap on that load, the tyre would have gone bang as well. And he was slipping and sliding on the last round, trying to hold off Giovinazzi. He was rewarded with 1 point. Fantastic job there. He becomes the first driver in Formula One history never to go down the pit lane during a Formula One race. Don't count the Belgium Grand Prix because they came in and out of the pit lane under the red flags. So count this. Yes, we've had drivers complete races on one set of tyres before in that weird 2005 season, but remember, they came in for fuel that year. This is the first time a driver has done the entire 300-odd kilometres without going down the pit lane. He's in the record books now as the only driver to do that on one set of tyres, one set of fuel, and never go down pit lane. Well done, Esteban Ocon.
I think that's a good rule of thumb. Just don't count the Belgian Grand Prix from this year for anything when it comes to statistical records like that, because there's going to be so many weird things going on with that, with the farce of a race that was. But that's a story for another time, of course. I've got to give a shout out to AJ Allmendinger, obviously, for winning the Xfinity race, his 3rd consecutive win on the Roval in the Xfinity Series. That's absolutely an achievement worth talking about. Had some bad luck bite him in the Cup race today, but he was right up there as well at the end of Stage 1. But my one shining moment is PJ Pedroncelli, driver in the ARCA Menard Series West at Roseville last night, getting his first career win. And this is really significant because this is a family-owned team that we saw in the West Series a little more than a decade ago. And then they left the series because of a lack of funding. And the Pedroncellis, PJ's father, Paul, is actually in the race as well, kind of runs the second car as a start and park effort for them. They started a mobile wine bottling company, and that a couple of years ago allowed them to return back to racing at their home track at Sonoma. And this year, PJ just decided, what the heck, let's go run the full schedule, run as many races as we can. And he finds himself unbelievably right in the middle of this championship battle on a fraction of the budget that the teams like Bill McAnally Racing and Sunrise Ford will be racing on. And he finally got his first career win last night. And I also want to give a shout out to my good friend, Ethan Smith, who was a photographer at the race last night. He's been traveling to all the West Series races this year. The Petroncellis are clients of his, so he got to take in the victory lane celebration, which I can only imagine how cool that must have been for him. So that is my one shining moment this weekend. A great story for the Petroncelli family.
For me, I have to give the grid one shining moment to Kyle Larson and that team for fixing the alternator issue they had. That was something where they were below the cut line. Yes, we could debate all about the NASCAR playoff system and how it works, but they could have easily been the team that we'd be talking about out of the race. What they did was a championship effort. I believe that's a strong statement to everybody that you're going to get that championship, you have to go through them, even on their worst day. Not counting a crash, of course, but today they could have easily caved under the pressure, been out of the playoffs, or just have a poor finish and then not have that momentum. They came back, they got the win. I feel that team is looking really good and strong, and especially with 4 races remaining, 3 in this round, and the championship finale, they're a team that's going to be hard to beat.
Kyle Larson, that number 5 team, is also my great one shining moment as well, but I want to focus more on crew chief Cliff Daniels when all of this went down with the alternator and having to make the changes there to stop the electrical gremlins from taking place. Cliff Daniels, he acted like a championship winning crew chief right there because he was able to formulate a plan quickly. The team executed the plan. And the most important thing is when he was on the radio with Kyle Larson, instead of panicking and worrying, he had a nice smooth voice, reminding Larson that we still have a long way to go, and I felt like that Cliff really showed his leadership capabilities today, and it really shined. That's exactly why Cliff Daniels is my great one shining moment. I also want to give a big shout out to IndyCar driver Sage Karam for his run yesterday in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race. For a guy who's driven open wheel machinery to get on a heavy stock car, wheel it around the Charlotte ROVAL, and to run as competitive as he did for Jordan Anderson Racing, I thought it was a really strong performance. He would have had a great finish if it wasn't for blowing one of the chicanes at the very end, which put him back into the mid 20s. But if that hadn't happened, Sage Karam would have gotten a decent finish. I thought it was really cool to see an IndyCar driver up there battling the NASCAR stock car drivers who have been driving this type of machinery for many years. While Sage Karam, this is only he hasn't even done 5 races in this type of machinery.
Those are all really good. But for me, my great one shining moment has to go to a lady that achieved something really cool last night, and that's Brittany Zamora. She became the first female to win a race at the historic Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway in Nashville, Tennessee. I believe she won a pro late model race there. And for those of you who don't know, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway has produced so many NASCAR drivers throughout its history. Names like Michael Waltrip and his brother Darrell Waltrip. 2-time Daytona 500 winner Sterling Marlin and his dad, the late Cuckoo Marlin. Mark Green, Jeff Green, and David Green have also competed there. But to see Brittany Zamora become the first female to win at that track in all its history was pretty cool. And also, I'll give a special shout out to Natalie Decker as well. Her Midwest Tour truck team won a race at the historic La Crosse Fairgrounds Speedway in Wisconsin yesterday as well. So for me, I've got 2. Brittany Zamora winning at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, and Natalie Decker's Great Midwest Tour Truck Series team winning at the historic La Crosse Fairgrounds Speedway in Wisconsin.
And one last thing about Brittany Zamora's win to show how truly significant that win is. Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway is one of the hardest places to win at your Saturday night short track, and it was a real competitive field. Brittany Zamora rose above the rest and took the checkered flag, and I think it's a real shame that she din't get another season in the ARCA Menard Series, because I think she would have truly shined had she gotten another season to race full time out there. And with that said, unfortunately, we're out of time for today. And we want to remind all of our viewers to please be sure to like and subscribe to GRIDnet. We're here on YouTube. Also, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We want to encourage you, take a few minutes after our show tonight, visit our Patreon page and invest in Grid Network. Thank you, Colin, Mark, Michelle, and Robin, for everything you've done keeping us on the air long term. Also, be sure to check out Pobbles. Consider spoiling your furry friend. They have dog leashes, clothing, accessories for dogs of all sizes, and 10% of your purchase goes towards helping homeless, sick, and rescued dogs, a great cause we support here at Grid Network. Please visit public.com, also known as the stock market social media home. The link below in referral code will give you $5 to invest right away. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You have a great opportunity to make new friends and use tools to learn how to properly invest in the stock market. For Adam Lemeries, Joe Samnego, Joshua Birch, and Ben Snyder, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful week.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.